Today I'm going to be talking to you about that program proposal for a developmental counselling program for clusters of gifted students at our school. I'll be talking about the rationale, the program description, how it will look like for the students, evaluation, plan of action and a budget. Okay, I've been studying programming for gifted students, and we are doing lots of great things with gifted students. We're doing many aspects of a quality program for gifted and talented students. We're identifying them well, we're clustering them in classes, teachers are planning and delivering differentiated teaching and learning opportunities. Mentoring opportunities are presented within the IB framework, all aspects of a very effective program for gifted students. But developmental counselling of gifted students is not currently part of the suite of options that we have for gifted students. With all of our students at TIGS, we do have access to school counsellors, which is fantastic, but that is more of a reactionary way of helping them. When we see a need, we refer and then they receive some help. This sort of a developmental counselling program would be more of a preventative way of looking at students' needs and skilling them up, so the need for reactive counselling would be hopefully lessened, or we would look into that. Research would indicate that this is a great way of helping gifted students to achieve their potential, both academically and also with their social and emotional well-being. Their social and emotional well-being can often be affected by their giftedness. The nature of their gift can make them feel very different. It can lead them to not being able to socialise very well because the things they speak about are on quite a different wave level to other students, and it can lead them to feel quite isolated and lonely and unhappy, and of course this can affect their learning as well. There's lots of research into this. You've got a research handout there that I'll let you look through later on. I'll refer to the research but not the specifics, but you can look at your handout afterwards about it. In designing the developmental counselling program that I'm proposing, there's a lot of research into developmental counselling programs in general. In the US, there's a lot of school boards that have developmental counselling models for all students, which would be a very expensive way of having all the students in school taught or instructed by a counsellor. So I don't think that's an affordable method to be proposing, nor necessary. Other research would indicate that teachers or counsellors that have a really good understanding about the nature of gifted students and their special needs in regard to social and emotional well-being can cater for those. It doesn't have to be a counsellor offering the program, and that's why I've designed it so that a teacher would be presenting it. There is a school in Texas that has a very thorough description of their developmental counselling program, and I've used some aspects of that in designing the program. There's also 2 teachers from Innerborough that have been doing some research in their gifted program, and what they've been doing is teaching clusters of gifted students aspects of the maker model, and then once they're familiar with them, they're getting them to negotiate with their teachers different tasks that are more interesting, more motivating, and a higher order thinking type activities to do with their regular classwork that they're doing. They've found that's a very successful way of increasing students' motivation, and they're really enjoying learning. And it's an important aspect with gifted students that we continue to motivate them, help them to be learning in their zone of proximal development, because if they are constantly feeling like they're not learning anything, they're just coasting along, they can often be less likely to achieve their potential. How I'm proposing this program to run is that with one cluster in a 1 year group of gifted students, during their library time, they would spend a 40-minute period and they would work on various things, which I'll go into a little bit more closely, over one term. So it's going to look at various aspects of their social and emotional development, as well as looking at a couple of aspects of the Maker model, in the hope that their skills would allow them to delve into the current units of inquiry in their class more deeply. So the areas that I've identified to look at in the program over a 10-week period. The first week would be an introduction session. I would do a pre-survey about how they feel about themselves, how they're going with their friendships, how they're going in school, so that I can get to know where they're at, if there are any problems that I can address during the developmental counselling sessions in the next few weeks. The second week, I'd look at self-concept, aiming to focus the students on having a healthy appreciation of their gifts and abilities, rather than focusing on any negative feelings that they may have due to feeling different. We'd look at their uniqueness, managing their feelings. There'd be an icebreaker session every week, some sort of little activity that would be quick, getting them to get to know each other and feel comfortable with the session. Week 3, we would look at decision making and goal setting. Discussing decision making and goal setting can encourage gifted students to keep challenging themselves and lifting their learning. So we look at how to make a decision, what sort of things they might need to consider, developing a plan of action for them in their areas of interest or something that they'd like to work on, and set a specific measurable goal. Week 4, we would look at interpersonal effectiveness. Gifted students can find interacting with other students difficult, particularly when they're highly academically gifted. Working in groups they can find challenging. Reviewing interpersonal skills in communication can assist students to communicate more effectively. We would be looking at things like respecting others, relating well with others, participating effectively in groups, and developing healthy friendships. We could do this via bibliotherapy. This is using a book to look at the characters and the aspects that you want to teach via a character. It takes the focus off the person and allows them to look objectively at another person and then apply that learning to themselves. I would be looking at a book, say like Chicken Little, something we can read quite quickly and easily and get into the ideas behind the character and friendships and bring the themes out that way. That's something I also learned about at the course, and that's one of the aspects that INARA have been using as well in their developmental counselling. During week 6, I would get them to complete a post-unit evaluation form. You'll see that in your handout. What that is a look at their previous unit of inquiry that they've just finished, reflecting on how they went with their learning, what sort of things that they enjoyed, whether they felt that they were learning things, and that sort of thing. That is like a pre-test for this way that we're going to introduce the Maker model. We will do some sessions with the Maker model, and then we'll evaluate at the end how they felt about that next unit of inquiry. So the aspects that we'll focus on in the Maker model, so we're going to examine the Maker model aspect of complexity. We'll explore some examples of how you can apply complexity. We're going to use their new unit of inquiry, central idea and lines of inquiry, and we're going to jointly design some ways to apply complexity to their current unit of inquiry. We'll set goals to work on with a complexity task, and they will have that week to work on that either in class or at home. We often find with gifted students that they're more than happy to work on things at home, especially if they're motivated and enjoying the learning. The week 8, we would look at that work on complexity that they've brought in for that week. Then we would also focus on a new aspect of the Maker model called organisation. We would look at a mathematical task relating to their current unit of inquiry to explore, and we would work as a group. So we're acting on that information that we had, that we looked at in group work, by actually working as a group. And we would design an approach to that mathematical task, and we would set goals for the students to complete that task and bring that to the next meeting. Week 9, we would continue on with the Makers. This time we would look at that organisation task together and review how it went. And then we would look at the last one that we'll look at, which is study of people, another aspect of the maker model. We would have students apply that thinking to their current unit of inquiry, brainstorm some people that they could study, consider some aspects or headings that we might have in looking at that person. They would choose a person, or we would be able to research, would be in the library, we could Google different people to do with that topic, and they would then that week coming explore that person, and we could present that back to their class, and they could show that particular task, or any of the tasks really, to the class so that they could see the learning that they've been doing. The final week we would do the evaluation, that would be week 10. We would have students complete that post-unit evaluation, looking at the unit of inquiry that they would have just finished, and looking to see if using those maker model activities alongside that unit made that more motivating, made that more interesting, allowed them to feel as though they'd learnt something during that unit. The budget for this sort of a program is very minimal. One period for a teacher per week for a term. There's really very little resources that would be needed. It's a very economical way of seeing if we can enhance the learning for gifted and talented students at our school. The handout there has got more reference to research. It's also got that pre-test and the evaluation test. Thank you so much for listening, and appreciate your time. Thanks.